Hi kids, Eric the Car Guy here. Back again with another, well, I can't really call it a repair video because I'm probably not going to see this one through to the end. But I've been wanting to shoot this video for I cannot tell you how long. A lot of you come to me with Hondas that won't start, Hondas that maybe die as you're driving down the road, and everybody says fuel pump. It's got to be a fuel pump. Fuel pump went out in the thing, I got to put a fuel pump in it to get it to run again. And here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about with the problem that actually happens, which is the electrical portion of the ignition switch. And I've been waiting for one to come in so that I can show you on tape basically what these things do and how to diagnose a bad ignition switch in a Honda. So Scott has been kind enough to let me borrow this car real quick to show you basically how it's done. So keys in the ignition and everything seems normal. We got a beep in and everything like that. So now I'm going to try and start the car. It does start. It starts and runs just fine. Sometimes they won't. Well, watch this. Just take the key and wiggle it a little bit. And you can see that the car just stalled when you just wiggled the key. So again, I was able to start it right up. I just wiggle the key a little bit. And I won't always do it. Of course, I won't do it on camera. There you go. And all I had to do was wiggle a little bit and it turned off. Now, you don't have to replace the whole ignition lock cylinder. You just basically take this lower part down, and on the back side of it is the electrical portion of the ignition switch. You can remove that right from the back. There are a couple of connections up inside the fuse box here that you replace, but this solves a no start. This solves sometimes a long crank or sometimes just randomly stalling just right out of the blue. So if you have a Honda that randomly stalls out of the blue, try wiggling the ignition switch. If you wiggle the ignition switch and the car shuts off, it's an ignition switch issue. Remember, it's just the electrical portion. So if you have a Honda that stalls, this is a good thing to check for. Wiggle the key. If it stalls, do the ignition switch. Forget about the fuel pump. Honda fuel pumps hardly ever go bad. I've only replaced like maybe 2 or 3 in my entire career, and both of those were aftermarket. So stay away from Honda fuel pumps, and if you think it's a fuel pump, at least check for power at the yellow wire going into the top of the fuel pump. If it has power going to it and the fuel pump doesn't run, well, then you can say it's a fuel pump. But if there's no power at that yellow wire when you turn the key on, that means it's not getting a signal. And then you should check, well, one, the main relay, but also you should check the ignition switch. But don't go straight for the fuel pump on Hondas. It's not usually the problem. These ignition switches go bad all the time, so be sure to check that. Anyway, I am Eric the Car Guy, and if you have automotive questions, I would ask that you head over to EricTheCarGuy.com, where we have a bunch of categories of the most commonly asked questions I've gotten. In those categories, you may find an answer to your question. If you don't find an answer there, well, type in a couple of keywords to the search function, and you might get an answer from our database. If that still doesn't work, you can sign up for our forum. It's absolutely free. All you need is an email address. Just be sure to respond to the confirmation email that should end up in your inbox. If you don't see it there, check your spam folder, bulk folder, that kind of thing. You can connect with me socially at Google+, Facebook, and Twitter, and I close each of my videos with, be safe, have fun, and of course, stay dirty. Check the ignition switch.